Good morning, students. A warm welcome to you all in online teaching session. So, dear students, today we'll begin with the new chapter of your English textbook. So, I request you all to kindly get ready with your English textbook. So, dear students, I request you all to kindly open your English textbook, page number 8. Chapter number 5, The 12 Months. Now, children, the story The 12 Months is a story in a Russian tale. The story The 12 Months is a Russian tale. Okay, it is a Russian story, and this story brings out an easy way of remembering the months, the seasons of the year. How many months are there in the year? 12 months. So this story brings out an easy way of remembering the months, the seasons of the year, the climate, weather, and vegetation related to the seasons. Now, this story revolves. So, students, this story revolves around a mother with two daughters. One her own named Helena, and the other her stepdaughter named Marukla, who is a kind-hearted Marukla, who is a kind-hearted, hard-working, and beautiful, whereas Helena is totally opposite of Marukla. But Marukla, she was the stepdaughter. So the mother makes out her work throughout the day, which she does happily. So students, now let's see the more about this story. Let's try to understand this beautiful story in detail. I request you all to kindly open your textbook. Page number 8. Chapter number 5. The 12 Months. Once upon a time, in a far away country, there lived a mother who had two daughters. One was her own child, and the other was her stepdaughter. She was very fond of her own daughter, but she hated her stepdaughter. The only reason was that Marukula, the stepdaughter, was prettier than her own daughter, Helena. So, dear students, once upon a time, in a faraway country, there lived a mother who had two daughters. Okay? And one was her own child, and the other was her stepdaughter. So she was very fond of her own daughter, which means she liked her own daughter so much. She loved her own daughter so much. But she hated her stepdaughter. The only reason was her stepdaughter name was Marukla. Okay, so the only reason was that Marukla, the stepdaughter, she was prettier than her own daughter Helena. Okay, so Marukla, her stepdaughter, she was so pretty, so beautiful than her own daughter Helena. So the mother hated her stepdaughter very much, and this was the reason. Now let's proceed towards the second para. The gentle-hearted Marukla did not know how beautiful she was, and so she could never make out why her mother was always so cross with her. Marukla had to do all the housework, tidying up the cottage, cooking, washing, spinning, weaving, and sewing. She liked work and she did it all without a word of complaint, while Helena spent the time adorning herself and lazing about. Even then, Helena and her mother scolded and rated and abused Marukla every day. They envied her so much that one day they decided to throw her out in the freezing cold to get rid of her. So, dear students, the gentle hearted Marukla, she did not know how beautiful she was, and so she could never make out why her mother was always so cross with her, why her stepmother was always cross with her. Now, here the cross means, meaning of cross means very angry. Why her mother was always very angry with her. Merukla had to do all the housework, tidying up the cottage, cooking, washing, spinning, weaving, and sewing. So she liked work and she did it all without a word of complaint. Merukla, she used to do all types of works. She did it all without a word of complaint. While Helena, she spent the time adorning herself. Adorning means decorating herself and lazing about. Even then, Helena and her mother scolded and rated and abused Marukla. Even though Marukla, she used to do all kind of work, then too her stepmother and Helena, they scolded and rated and abused Marukla every day. And they both envied her. Envied means jealous her so much that they they too were jealous about Marukla so much that one day they decided to throw Marukla out in the freezing cold to get rid of her. Okay, so they both, Helena and her mother, the stepmother of Marukla, they both decided to throw Marukla outside in the freezing cold to get rid of her. Now, dear students, what do you mean by to get rid of her? Yes, rid means make someone or something free. Okay. So, dear students, Marukla, she used to do all kind of work, and then too, Helena, who spent the time adorning herself and lazing about, and then too, Helena and her mother, they used to abuse Marukla, and one day they decided to throw out Marukla in the freezing cold so they will get rid of her. Now next, go Marukla and get me some violets from the forest. I want to wear them and to smell them, said Helena. Now violets are the types of the flowers, okay? So Helena just ordered Marukla that go and get me some violets from the forest. I want to wear and to smell them, said Helena. But my dear sister, it is impossible to find violets in the snow, said poor Marukla. So the Marukla said to Helena that, my dear sister, it is impossible to find violets in the snow. In snow there are no violets. It's impossible to find it. How dare you argue when I tell you to do something? Off you go at once, and if you don't bring me violets from the forest, I will kill you, said Helena threateningly. Okay, so when Moracla said to Helena that it is impossible to find violets in the snow, so Helena said to her that how dare you argue when I tell you to do something? Just go and get me violets from the forest. And if you don't bring violets, then I will kill you, said Helena threateningly. Threateningly means intention to punish or hurt. The stepmother caught hold of Maricla, turned her out of the door, and slammed it to after her. Maricla went into the forest, weeping bitterly. The snow lay deep and there wasn't a human footprint to be seen. Maricla wandered about for a long time, tortured by hunger and trembling with cold. Yes, so dear students, the Helena, she sent Maricla to get her violets from the forest. And when Maricla said to us, Helena, that it's impossible to find violets in the snow. So Helena, she said threateningly to Maricla that just go and bring me violets. If you will not bring me violets from the forest, then I will kill you. So the stepmother caught hold of Maricla, turned her out of the door, and slammed it to after her. So her stepmother, she also caught hold of Maricla, and she turned her out of the door and slammed it to after her. Slammed means closed the door with a loud sound. Maricla went into the forest, weeping bitterly. The snow lay deep and there wasn't a human footprint to be seen. Maricla wandered about for a long time, tortured by hunger and trembling with cold. So Maricla, she went into the forest to get some violets for her sister Helena. So she went in the forest weeping bitterly. That means she was crying. And she went into the forest. The snow lay deep and there wasn't a human footprint to be seen. And Maricla, she was wandered about for a long time. She was very hungry and trembling with cold. Trembling means shivering. She was shivering with cold. Shivering because of cold. There was too cold outside in the forest. At last, she saw a light in the distance. She went towards the glow, which came from the top of a mountain. A big fire was burning there, and round the fire were 12 stones with 12 men sitting on them. So, dear students, at last, when Maricla, she was tortured by hunger and she was shivering with cold, she saw a light in the distance. She went towards the glow, which came from the top of a mountain. So that light, that glow was which was came from the top of a mountain. And a big fire was burning there. And round the fire were 12 stones with 12 men sitting on them. So, dear students, when Maricla, she saw a light in the distance, she went towards it and she saw that a big fire was burning there and round the fire were 12 stones with 12 men sitting on them. 3 of them had snow white beards, 3 were not so old, and 3 were still younger. The 3 youngest were the handsomest of them all. So, among those 12 men, 3 of them had snow white beards. 3 of the men, they had snow white beards. 3 were not so old, and 3 were still younger. The 3 youngest were the handsomest of them all. They were not speaking, but all sitting silent. These 12 men were the 12 months. So, among those 12 months, these 12 men were nothing but the 12 months. So, among those 12 months and the 12 men, 3 of them which were still younger, 3 of them had snow white beards, 3 were not so old, and the 3 were youngest of them all, and they were handsomest of them all. So those 12 months, those 12 men who were sitting, they were not speaking, but all sitting silent. Great January sat highest of all. His hair and beard were as white as snow, and his hand he held a club. So Great January, he was highest of all. Okay, as you all know, the month Jan stood first. Okay, the month Jan falls first. So he was highest of all. And his hair and beard was as white as snow. And in his hand he held a club. Club means wooden stick or a heavy stick used as a weapon. Maragla was frightened. She stood still for a time in terror, but growing bolder, she went up to them and said, "Please, kind sirs, let me warm my hands at your fire." So Maragla, by seeing these 12 months, 12 men who were sitting on the stones, she was frightened. She stood still for a time in terror. Terror means fear. But growing bolder, she went up to them and said, "Please, kind sirs, let me warm my hands at your fire." Great January nodded and asked her, "Why have you come here, my dear little girl? What are you looking for?" So, Great January, he nodded his head and asked Maragla that why you have come here and what are you looking for? "I am looking for violets," answered Maragla. So she said to January that I am looking for violets. "There is no time to be looking for violets." So, Great January, he said to Maragla that there is no time to be looking for violets, for everything is covered with snow, answered Great January. That he said that it is impossible to find violets in snow because everything is covered with snow. Now students, just turn your page. Open your textbook, page number 9. Yes, I know. But my sister Helena and my stepmother said that I must bring them some violets from the forest. If I don't bring them, they will kill me. Tell me, fathers, please tell me where I can find them. So, dear children, Marukla said to Great January that, yes, I know that it's impossible to find violets in the snow, which where everything is covered by snow. It's impossible to find it. But my sister Helena and my stepmother said that I must bring them some violets from the forest. And if I don't bring them, they will kill me. So tell me, fathers, please tell me where I can find violets. Who said this? Said Marukla to the 12 months. Great January stood up and went to one of the younger months. It was March, and giving him the club, he said, "Brother, take the high seat." Yes, children. So what happened next? Great January, he stood up and he went to the one of the younger months, and it was March. Okay, and giving him the club, as I've told you, club means wooden stick. So giving the club to March, he said, "Brother, take the high seat," because the high seat, who was sitting on the high seat? The Great January. So he gave the club to March, and he said that, "Brother, take the high seat." March took the high seat upon the stone and waved the club over the fire. The fire blazed up, the snow began to melt, the trees began to bud, and the ground was at once covered with grass. It was spring time. The violets began to bloom among their little leaves, and before Marukla had time to think, so many of them had sprung up there that they looked like a blue cloth spread out on the ground. So, dear students, March took the high seat upon the stone and he just waved the club over the fire. Okay, club means wooden stick. He just waved it and the fire blazed up. Fire blazed up. Blazed means, yes, blazed means what? To shine. The fire began to shine. The snow began to melt and the trees began to bud. Bud means, yes, students. Yes, children, to bud means a compact growth on a plant. So the trees began to bud and the ground was at once covered with grass and it was springtime. Now, dear students, spring is the season between winter and summer. Okay, so in spring season, you can see that various flowers are grown and in this time in spring season. So spring season, it falls between summer and winter. In India, the spring season in India, it's of 2 month duration, which are March and April. March and April is known as a spring season in India. Okay, so as March took the high seat and he just waved the club over the fire blazed up, the snow began to melt, and the ground was covered with grass, and it was springtime. The violets began to bloom among their little leaves, and before Marukla had time to think, so many of them had sprung up that they looked like a blue cloth spread out on the ground. So the violets began to bloom among their little leaves, and before Marukla had time to think, the ground was sprung up with violets, and it looks like a blue cloth spread out on the ground. You can see in this image itself. Now, students, the remaining part of the chapter, the 12 months will continue in the next lecture. Till that, stay connected, stay safe.